I'm Nora, 31. 3 weeks ago at my father's retirement gala, he stood on a stage in front of 200 people, pointed at me and said, "No degree, no real career, just a freeload off this family. But hey, at least she showed up." 200 people laughed. I stood up, raised my glass, and said, "Cheers, Dad. This is the last time any of you see me." Then I walked out. What none of those 200 people knew, what my father definitely didn't know, is that the consulting firm keeping his company alive for the last 3 years, the one he'd been bragging about at every industry dinner for 18 months straight, was mine. Every dollar of it. Stick around, because in about 10 minutes I'm going to tell you exactly what happened when he found that out, and trust me, you want to see his face. Drop your city and the time it is right now where you're at. I actually read every single one of these. Let me take you back 12 years, though. To the day my father decided my future wasn't worth the tuition. The bellwethers of Ridgefield, Connecticut. Old money, adjacent new money, desperate. My dad, Grant Bellwether, ran a freight logistics company his own father built. 6-bedroom colonial, 2 Range Rovers in the driveway. A country club membership he name-dropped more than his own kids' names half the time. My mom died when I was 7. 2 years later, Dad remarried Rosalind, who came with a son, Dashiell, 3 years older than me. Within a year, they weren't part of the family. They were the family. I became furniture. Not dramatic, not Cinderella with a broom furniture. Just invisible. Dash got the new car at 16. I got his old one 2 years later, still smelling like his cologne. Dash was the future of the company. I was, in my dad's own words once, still figuring things out. The one person who ever actually saw me was my grandmother, Constance. Called me every single Sunday. Asked about my classes. My dreams, told me, "You remind me of myself at your age, Nora. Underestimated. I see you even when they don't. She left me something when she died. I'm getting to that. Don't worry, I'm getting there." Sophomore year at UConn, business major, 3.9 GPA, a summer program in Geneva I'd already gotten accepted into. Dad called me home on a Wednesday. Family meeting. 2 words that had never once meant anything good in that house. Found him in his study, Rosalind's hand on his shoulder like they'd rehearsed the blocking. "Nora, we need to make some sacrifices as a family." Dash got into the Wharton MBA program. "Incredible opportunity. We can't afford both your tuition and his." Rosalind added, "Honey, sweet, a girl doesn't really need an MBA to have a good life, sweetheart. You'll find somebody." I said, "You promised Mom you'd support my education." My dad's jaw tightened. "Circumstances change. I'll make it up to you once things stabilize." He never did. Found out years later through a cousin's loose lips that there was plenty of money. They just decided it wasn't going to be spent on me. I didn't fight him that day. I just nodded. But I made myself a promise walking out of that study this was the last time anybody else decided what I was worth. Moved to Boston with $2,000 and a suitcase. 400 square feet above a laundromat radiator, clanking all-night ramen for dinner. Day-old bagels for breakfast from the cafe where I worked mornings. But here's the thing about actual rock bottom, you genuinely can't fall any further from there. Landed an admin job at a small logistics firm. The owner, a gruff old guy named Walt, was the first person in years to say, "You've got a brain, kid. Use it." So I did. Stayed late, learned every system, took free online courses at night, supply chain operations, the whole thing. MIT OpenCourseWare basically became my second degree. Never called home. Never asked for $1. When Dad's assistant mailed me a $50 birthday check one year, I tore it in half and mailed it back with nothing attached. 4 years in, I had enough saved to start my own thing, Halden Consulting. Just me, a laptop, a rented desk. Kept my own name off everything public. No LinkedIn headshot, no press. Everything ran through the company name and my lawyer. Why the secrecy? Because I knew my family. If they found out I was actually winning, they'd either try to take credit or find a way to burn it down. So I built it in total silence. Grandma Constance died 2 years ago. I sat in the back pew at the funeral while my dad delivered a eulogy about a remarkable woman devoted entirely to family. Irony so thick I could have choked on it. 3 days later, a lawyer I'd never heard of called me. Harriet Doyle, Boston estate firm. Ms. Bellwether, I represent your grandmother's separate trust. She established it 8 years ago with explicit instructions that no other family member be told it exists. $800,000. There was a letter too. Harriet read it to me over the phone. I know what they did to you, Nora. I argued with your father until I had no words left. This money is yours, no strings. Build the life they tried to take from you. When they finally see your worth, it'll be too late. My hands weren't steady holding that phone. I used part of it to expand Halden. Kept the rest as insurance for a day I hoped would never actually come, but always sort of knew might. That day showed up 3 weeks ago. Here's the part that would honestly be funny if it wasn't so unbelievably ironic. One of Halden's biggest clients for the last 3 years has been Bellwether Freight, my dad's own company. They signed on for route optimization and warehouse consulting after a competitor referral that never once had my name attached to it. That contract accounts for close to 40% of their annual operational savings. My dad has zero idea. Every communication runs through my team. Every contract signed by my CFO, Foster Reyes. The handful of times Grant Bellwether has bragged at industry dinners about whoever's running that consulting shop, he's been bragging about his own daughter's work. The same daughter he calls a freeload to 200 people. 3 weeks ago, gold-embossed invitation to his retirement gala landed in my mailbox. I almost tossed it. Then I thought about Grandma Constance's 12 years of silence, every broken promise. I RSVP'd, yes, not for reconciliation. I went because I had a pretty strong feeling my dad was going to do something unforgivable in front of a room full of witnesses, and I wanted to be there when he did. I had no idea just how right I'd be. Country club ballroom chandeliers, the whole overproduced deal. Black dress, my grandmother's pearl earrings, everything on my body paid for with my own money, which mattered more to me than any label ever could. Roslyn intercepted me at the door. Nora, you came. Your father wasn't sure you'd have anything appropriate to wear. I smiled. How thoughtful of him to worry. Table 14, back corner near the kitchen door, seated with distant family friends I'd never met. Not the family table. Not close. I noted it and moved on. Standing near the bar, I picked up pieces of my dad's conversation with a shipping executive. Halden Consulting's been transformative for us, he said. Whoever's behind that company is a genius. The other guy said, I've been trying to get a meeting for months. Very private operation, you know who's behind it? My dad shrugged. Never met them personally. Everything goes through their legal team. Long as they keep delivering, I don't care who it is. I took a sip of champagne to hide the smile. My phone buzzed. Text from Foster. Contract renewal docs from Bellwether came in. They're asking for another 5 years. Need your call by end of week. I hadn't decided yet. Some small part of me still wanted to keep the professional relationship separate from 12 years of personal wreckage. Watching my dad take a bow for success partially built on my own work started shifting something in my chest, though. At the bar, Aunt Deb, Roslyn's sister, spotted me first. Nora? Oh my goodness, I almost didn't recognize you. Still up in Boston doing whatever it is you do? Consulting, I said. Supply chain. Oh, how nice, in the exact tone you'd use for somebody who collects bottle caps. Dash found me on the terrace before the speech. $5,000 suit, Rolex, probably gifted by our dad. Well, the prodigal daughter. He said I'd always been jealous. Said I'd never gotten over the tuition thing. Said I'd started playing businesswoman up in Boston and asked how long before it failed, and I came crawling back. I told him he could believe whatever made him feel better. Then I said, after tonight, you're gonna wish you'd treated me differently. He laughed it off, walked back inside like he'd won something. He had no idea what was actually coming. None of them did. Lights dimmed. My dad took the stage to applause 40 years in the business, thanking partners, mentors. God luck everything except the actual people who built anything alongside him. Then the family segment. Roslyn, 30 years of putting up with my late nights, you're a saint. Standing ovation for Dash, the future of Bellwether Freight, couldn't be prouder. Then his eyes found me. Something shifted. Something mean. And my daughter, Nora. Spotlight swung to my table. No degree, no real career, just a freeload off the family. But hey, at least she showed up tonight. Maybe she'll find a rich husband to take care of her. 200 people laughed. Real laughter. The kind that comes from people who genuinely think they're in on the joke. I sat perfectly still until the laughter died down. Then I stood, raised my glass. Congratulations on your retirement, Dad. 40 years. You taught me a lot about hard work, about sacrifice, about exactly what kind of loyalty a person can expect from this family. Total silence now. So cheers. This is the last time any of you will see me. I set the glass down without drinking it, picked up my bag and walked out. Heels clicking, the only sound in a room that had gone completely dead. Real quick, if you've ever sat through a family gathering while somebody turned you into the punchline, if you've ever smiled through it because reacting would only prove them right. I want you to know, I see you. If any of this is landing for you already, drop a comment, tell me you're here. And if you want to know exactly what happened once my dad figured out who he'd actually been mocking, stay with me because that part's coming up fast. Linda, sorry. Roslyn caught me in the parking lot. Do you have any idea what you just did? You humiliated your father. I said I think you've got that backwards. My dad appeared behind her, told me to get back inside and apologize. Said if I left now, I was done, no more family, nothing. I almost laughed. Dad, you cut me off 12 years ago. You just never said it out loud. Tonight, I'm saying it for both of us. Got in my car and drove. Pulled into a rest stop 20 minutes out, sat there with the engine idling, and for the first time in 12 years, actually breathed. It wasn't over, though. Families like mine don't let go that easy. The text started within a day. Cousins, aunts, people I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly very concerned about my mental state. The narrative was already being written. Poor, unstable Nora, jealous of her brother, had some kind of episode at the party. I didn't respond to any of them. They were getting closer than I'd realized. Time to stop waiting and start acting. Turns out, while I was fielding concerned texts in Boston, my dad was sitting through a very different kind of meeting back in Connecticut. His CFO slid a folder across the table. We've got a problem with Halden. Contract's up for renewal. They haven't responded to our extension offer 3 times running. My dad said, so call their executives directly. We've tried. Nobody at that company has ever met the actual ownership. It's all legal reps and account managers. A long silence, and then apparently, I want a name by end of week. The name he wanted was already sitting on his family tree the whole time. Thursday night, Roslyn called. Honey and sugar, full performance. Your father feels terrible. He didn't mean it. He gets nervous. He exaggerates. Why don't you come home this weekend, clear the air? I asked if he wanted to apologize. Hesitation. He wants to move forward. So no apology. Don't be difficult, we're trying to help you. Then, almost too casual. Somebody mentioned seeing you around Halden Consulting's offices actually. Small world, isn't it? My stomach dropped. They were fishing and they'd just told me exactly what for. I told her she'd spent 22 years making sure I knew I wasn't really part of that family, and now she wanted to help me and asked why exactly now. Longer pause. I think we both know there's more going on here than family drama. Whatever you're planning, it'd be better for everyone if you just came home and talked it through. I hung up before she could say anything else. They knew something. They just didn't know how bad it actually was yet. Next morning, I drove to Harriet's office. I assume this is about Bellwether Freight, she said before I even sat down. They're investigating Halden, trying to find out who's behind it. She spread the contract across her desk, standard 30-day termination clause, no penalty, no exposure. And the trust completely separate from the Bellwether estate, legally untouchable. Your grandmother made sure of that, Harriet said. She told me one day you'd need leverage, and when that day came, she wanted you to have it. Then quieter. She also said not to be cruel about it, just honest. Sometimes the truth is punishment enough. That afternoon conference room with Foster. They want to renew 5 years, 12% increase, they're nervous. They should be. I pulled up the projections. If we walk, they lose 40% of their operational efficiency inside 60 days. In freight logistics, that's not a dip, that's a free fall. Dash had just taken over as CEO. If this hit on his watch, his reputation was finished before it started. Draft the termination letter, I said. 30-day notice, no accusations, strategic repositioning, that's all they need officially. Then I told him I was also writing a personal letter. Separate envelope. My dad deserved to know exactly who he'd been depending on. Took me 7 drafts. First one was pure fury. Third one was too desperate. Final version was short, clean, factual. Told him the company he called transformative was mine. Told him I was ending the contract, not as revenge as a boundary. Told him Grandma Constance left me a trust he never knew about because she saw what he couldn't. Told him I didn't need an apology, or understanding, just needed him to know I was never what he said I was. Signed it with my full name, middle name, included the one I'd legally added years back in her honor. Included a photocopy of Halden's Incorporation papers, my name listed as sole owner, clear as day. Monday, 9 a.m., courier confirmation. By 10:15, missed call from my dad. 10:17, another. 10:23, missed call from Dash. 10:31, Roslyn. By noon, I had 12 missed calls and 8 texts. Didn't answer a single one. I'd waited 12 years. They could wait a few more hours. 2 p.m. My assistant knocked. There's a family in the lobby. They say it's urgent. 5 hours of highway just to show up in person. I checked my blazer in the window's reflection and said, send them to conference room B. I'll be down in 5. Glass walls on purpose. My whole team could see in not to humiliate anybody, just to make sure it stayed civil. My dad turned when I walked in, face gray, older than I'd ever seen him. Nora. What is this? Hello, Dad. Roslyn. Dash. I sat at the head of the table. I assume you got my letter. Dash jabbed a finger at me. You can't just, I said. Sit down, Dash. I'm not doing this with you yelling across a table. He looked at my dad, who nodded once, and they sat. This is some kind of misunderstanding, my dad said finally. Which part? Halden Consulting is mine. I built it. I own it. 3 years ago, your company signed a contract with mine. You praised my work at every industry dinner you attended. You just didn't know it was me. Roslyn's face went white. But you don't have a degree, you were just a what, Roslyn? A disappointment? Nobody answered that. My dad stared at the documents in front of him like they might catch fire if he looked hard enough. Okay, he said finally, voice strained. I apologize. About the party. Is that what you want? Now can we talk about the contract? You're sorry because you need something from me. That's not an apology. Dash slammed his palm on the table. Do you know what happens if you pull this contract? 20% of our workforce gone because of your petty revenge. It's not revenge. It's a business decision. Your company chose to get dependent on mine. That's not on me. You could have told us, Roslyn said, voice climbing. When? When you told me I didn't need an education because I'd find a husband? When you spread it around that I had mental health issues after I walked out? Nobody had an answer for that either. I turned to my dad. Worst part is I would have kept the contract running. I wasn't planning any of this. But then you stood up in front of 200 people and called me worthless. You did that, not me. What do you want? He asked flat. Nothing you can give me. I stood. This meeting's over. And Dad, if you contact me again, calls, texts showing up at my office, I release every email, every record of how this family treated me. All of it's legal. All of it's backed up. And all of it would make a real interesting business press story. Walked them out myself. My dad paused in the doorway. You really hate us that much? Barely above a whisper. No, Dad. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore. And that's something you're going to have to learn to live with. He didn't have anything left to say to that. Okay, pause with me here for a second because I know some of you have been through a version of this yourselves. Not 200 witnesses, maybe, but that exact feeling of being the family disappointment, the one they talk about in whispers, the one whose whole worth got decided by other people before you ever got a say. If any part of this is hitting close, I want you to comment same or just tell me you're here. Because knowing I'm not the only one who's lived, this actually means something. And stick with me because what my dad found out a week later changed how I understood everything. 1 week after that meeting, my Uncle Robert called my dad's younger brother, the family black sheep hadn't spoken to him in a decade. Heard what happened at the party. There's something I should have told you years ago. My mom, he said, had set up an education fund before she died. Enough to cover 4 full years anywhere in the country. My dad drained it, used it on Dash's MBA, then told me there was no money at all. I sat down on the edge of my desk without fully deciding to. Your mother wanted you to have choices, Nora, he said. Richard, your dad took them. Constance found out. That's why she built the trust. She couldn't get your mother's money back, but she made damn sure he never touched anything else that was yours. 2 months after I terminated the contract, the fallout went public. 20% workforce reduction at Bellwether Freight right before the holidays. Press release blamed market conditions. Everybody in Connecticut business circles knew the real story: their biggest consulting partner walked and they couldn't recover fast enough. Dash, 3 months into being CEO, already getting grilled by the board. My dad came out of retirement to try and manage the crisis. The legacy exit he'd planned for himself was falling apart in real time, and worse than the numbers, his reputation went with it. A former colleague told me he sat alone at an industry dinner a few weeks later. Nobody wanted to be seen next to the guy who publicly humiliated the daughter who'd secretly been holding his whole company up. I didn't feel triumphant hearing it. Just tired. Grandma Constance had been right. Sometimes the truth really is punishment enough. I didn't have to do another single thing. It did itself. 6 months later, I started therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I was finally ready to actually put myself back together properly. Told my therapist I didn't regret any of it. I regretted that it had to happen at all, but not protecting myself. Halden's thriving. Replaced the Bellwether contract with 3 smaller, more stable clients. Foster got promoted. We moved to a bigger office with a harbor view. I reconnected with Uncle Robert dinner once a month, now him telling me real stories about my mom instead of my dad's sanitized version. She was fierce, he told me once. Stubborn. A fighter. She'd be so proud of you. I still keep Grandma Constance's photo on my desk. Visit her grave monthly. Told her once out loud, standing there in the spring wind, I did it, Grandma. I didn't let them define me. Swear I could almost hear her say it back, I always knew you would. So here's what I actually learned if you want the takeaway. Your worth was never tied to a degree, or your family's approval, or who believed in you early enough to matter to them. It's tied to what you build when nobody's watching who you become once everybody's already counted you out. My dad thought that speech was going to put me in my place. What he actually did was set me completely free. I don't hate my family for what it's worth. Hate takes energy I'd rather spend on people who've actually earned it. If you've ever been the scapegoat, the invisible one, the family disappointment, I see you. I've been you. There's genuinely a life on the other side of walking away from people who never deserved you in the first place. If this one got you, drop a comment and let me know which part hit hardest. And if you know somebody who needs to hear that walking away isn't the same thing as losing, send them this one.